Man, James Ham. That's the beauty of these home games, man. James doesn't go home. He just hangs out in the studio and comes in and hangs out with us early.
I made a run to Costco.
Oh,
I stopped
God.
by the mall.
Wow, none of that sounds appealing.
Oh, yeah. No,
Driving all the way back to your house sounds better than doing either of those.
I was at the
things.
mall on Saturday.
Oh,
yeah.
I hate that I have to drive past the mall.
Oh,
I don't like going to the mall at all. So
This time of year is brutal.
I like going to the mall. Old school. I mean, I understand I don't like it right now, but just in general, you take a walk.
Well, you got all that.
Walk through the mall.
All those lines of credit. You was at Roseville by me with a Louis and Gucci and Coach
I was in the trenches.
All that stuff was.
No, I was in the trenches.
Oh no.
No, well, I'm definitely
Fruit Ridge.
I was in the trenches.
What's the
I was at Arden.
Oh,
trenches.
Man.
Oh,
glad you made it out, dog.
that's tough, bro.
Glad you made it out.
Whew.
Kenny.
That's risking life and limb.
Man. Well, I don't know what gift Reese wanted, boy, but it must have been important. Goodness gracious.
I'm with my people though. I'm a man of the people though. Unlike Damien, he high class. Me, I'm just with the people.
High class, you're Amazon.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it.
We stay at home and mail order.
That's my plan. My plan is always, I try to avoid, my goal is to never step foot in a Target again.
Oh.
What do I need? Amazon, order it. Oh, I forgot something. Fine. Place another order. Doesn't cost to place multiple orders. It's not like it's more expensive. I just think of some 9 Amazon packages showing up per day because I forget to order stuff.
Sometimes you got to get out the house.
I don't mind getting out the house. I just don't want to go to Target.
Target's fine.
Our Suburban, we only keep around just to stack cardboard boxes in. So then we run them to the cardboard box place. That's all we use it for. That every once in a while we put a boat on it, but
every once in a while. One of your many.
Yeah.
One of your many boats. As we welcome in our man James Ham here to talk some Kings basketball before we look ahead to that Battle of the Titans tonight against the Washington Wizards. Let's go back to Saturday. You were in the building. How loud was that third quarter, and how much was that Golden One Center crowd hanging on everything that Keegan Murray was doing?
Oh, yeah, fully engaged, like very, very crazy, wild atmosphere. I was telling Kyle earlier, it was so difficult to keep up. So he kept hitting 3-pointers, but in like twos. So he would hit one, and then they'd get a steal, they'd go down, or they'd get a stop, they'd go down. He'd hit another one. So before you could even put out one tweet, he'd already hit another 3. And then next thing you know, he's got 26 points, whatever it was in the quarter.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was lucky enough to be in the building when Clay went crazy. What was it, 37 and a quarter? And even when we had the Omri Steph Curry shootout,
I remember that.
That was wild. But this was just one player that.
For those that aren't aware, that is an incredible sentence you just uttered.
The Omri cast.
Oh yeah, like
that was crazy.
Yeah, for those who that
it was a real thing.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, it was a real thing.
It was wild. I think Omri put up 18 and Steph put up 17 in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a heavyweight battle, like out of nowhere. But this was different. Like you're watching a young player who's coming into his own, and we talked about this just last week, right? That we need to know who Keegan is going to be, right? So if we think Keegan be a 20-point per game guy, and you got your choice of OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam, then I want OG. If you're not convinced that he's going to be a 20-point a game guy, but he can maybe be 15 and a really good defender, then I want Pascal. I think he just answered that question. I think it was that quick. Everyone in the building, everyone who watched it from wherever they were, they went, oh, that's why the Kings think so highly of him.
So I want to revisit that a little bit, just that discussion in general. But I did want to ask you more about that performance. Where does that rank for Sacramento Kings history? That night, that obviously it's not the highest point total, but I mean the threes, obviously being there and seeing it happen. Like we were thinking about obviously Cousins, ejection. 56-point game. This is ridiculous game.
Yeah.
Mitch 47 in Houston. I think they were the defending champions at that time. But where's this one? Jesse brought up a good one. De'Aaron's game 1 in the playoffs last year is probably up there.
Yeah.
Where's this game rank for you?
I mean, for a regular season game, I'd put it right there with the Cousins game. because Cousins was on a tear at that point. I think he had two 50-point games in a row. Like what he was doing was just next level. And, unfortunately that was such a blip in his career where he was focused. He was talking to somebody, he was doing the right things off the court. Like everything was focused and he had this incredible stretch of games and then slipped right back into what he was doing before, which was none of that stuff. And you saw him dramatically dip as soon as he got past it. But that the night where they had to call Cousins back out of the locker room, that might have been one of the craziest. I mean, that was the craziest night. I mean,
that was a 56-point game, right? Or was it?
It was 50 something. Yeah.
And we had the the puke game is one that stands out of just like a totally bizarre night.
Well, some would say that's one of the greatest performances in Kings history because of what it resulted in.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, in all honesty, it was the lead up, and then of course they fire Luke Walton after that game. It's just weird. So I've been a part of like some really crazy games, but as far as just purely watching somebody have a moment, that was it. It was like, wow, look at this dude go.
It's not the same, but I think anyone who was there will remember it. I think anyone watching it will remember it. Domas's first game.
Oh, yeah, that was a great moment.
Oh, yeah.
No one will forget the hug heard round the world where De'Aaron just falls into Domas's arms like, I got a real NBA player on my team.
There's two games too that stand out. There's the game, I think the Kings were in Chicago when they went on the 30-1 run to come back. Chicago. I think it was even bigger than that. I was at a game when I was young where the Kings came back. I think it was on the Charlotte Hornets, but the really good Charlotte Hornets team with like Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning, I think Glenn Rice, Muggsy Bogues, all those guys. And the Kings went on a 30-1 run in that game. And I remember Walt Williams had a 360 dunk in the middle of the game. Like on a breakaway. That was huge, but I don't know, to see a young player coming into his own, like right in front of you, like I tweeted it like a star is born. We saw the star being born like right there. Holy cow.
Yeah. An incredible night. And keep saying this. The Kings played so well in that game. Of course, it helps when you have a guy who hits like 12 of 13 threes. But overall, Domas was incredible. 2 hours and 57 minutes in. Nice bounce back games for both Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes.
The new Harrison, because Harrison is still Harrison.
Especially Harrison.
That's right. Yeah, Harrison. Like he was. It felt like he was hitting threes at a comfortable clip at a certain point in that game as well. And it was like, all right, these guys are finding their groove. And overall, as a team, the offense, again, I'm sure it helps to have a guy hit 12 of 13 threes, but everything on the offensive end looks so easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, Keegan started, I think, 11 straight. Like what he was doing early on. And it did open up things. I mean, I thought Domas was really good. He was directing traffic. I thought Malik Monk just continues to have huge games. But to have one player, like some of the statistical stuff that Keegan did in that game, he jumped from like 13.8 points to 15.5. He jumped his 3-point percentage. He walked into that game at 30.4 and came out at 35.7. Over 5 percentage points he raised in one game. Like, how do you even do that? I mean, we're not talking about 8 games into the season. We're talking like 24, 25 games into the season. Just like watching that was crazy. The Kings getting the 6 games over 500 mark. It took them until January 15th last year to get to 6 games over 500. They're a month ahead of schedule. So like all of these pieces to the puzzle kind of like falling into place. And it's good to see, that on a game where you don't have De'Aaron Fox, that a guy like Harrison Barnes can still show you like he still can play. He's just not getting any play calls for him. And when he did go out there and, he had opportunity, I thought he took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe Keegan hit 47 points. To be honest with you, like I know that may sound like shade or whatever the case may be, but I didn't know he'd have that type of game in him in his career. You know what I'm saying? 47, and it felt like could have easily got 50, 55. You know what I mean? If they would have kept feeding him in that fourth quarter, let him play a little bit more in that fourth quarter. If he was a different type of individual as far as like hunting for shots and things of that nature. I mean, like you said earlier, Ham, this kind of feels like it changes in one game, maybe for some people, who you think he possibly could be.
Well, I think you always need to find the perspective in it too, because I'll point out Kevin Herter's been in the league, like 6 years. His career high is 30. Harrison Barnes has been in the league for, I think, 12 years. His career high is 36. De'Aaron Fox's career high is 44. Malik Monk's career high is 45, which he had last year in that crazy 176, 175 game win over the Clippers. Keegan Murray is the highest single game out of any Kings player on the roster at this point. Like, no one else on that team has gone for more than 47. And so it just shows you that there is a different type of ceiling that maybe like none of us really knew was there, but they see this behind the scenes. Like, the team sees it. They know how good he's going to be. Like, De'Aaron Fox has played alongside him all summer long, working with him. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this. But at the end of the day, if this is even partially who he can be, then it changes like a ton of things for the Kings going forward.
And then real quick to his point, that's what De'Aaron kind of talked about today. He was like, his numbers don't reflect what we've seen from him in practice and in workouts and things of that nature. So it was good, to have that game for that reason alone, where it seems like who he is and who he can be as an offensive player, you can see it in the numbers in a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're all hoping for is that he can be a guy who averages 20 a game plus, right? And he just showed you right away, like, okay, I can do that. I can give you that.
The ceiling for me, you talked about like the perception, may have been wrong about what he can do and the ceiling and all of that stuff. To me, like what he did the other night was amazing. To me, it's on the defensive end. What we've seen him do on the defensive end this season is the moment where it's like, one, I had no idea he could do this. Two, this is what he looks like 25 games into his second season on that side of the ball. And I told Kenny this morning, the biggest eye-opening thing for me in the early part of the season is like, I think you can have conversations about, Paul George, Klay Thompson comps when you talk about two-way players in the league. Great two-way players, guys who could score, who have the ability to shoot, have the ability to do a lot of things, but can be the team's top or one of the team's top defender on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing right now he can be a plus defender, right? And even coming out of college, I think everyone knew he would be a solid defender at the NBA level, but league average maybe a little bit above. But then he went out and he did all this work on his body in the offseason. And he's even said, like, I'm just way more athletic than I was last year. And it's really odd to hear an athlete say that they went away for a summer and they came back, they're more athletic. But it's what we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing him attack the rim and dunk on, he dunked on Harry Giles. He's dunked on a handful of players already. And there's just like an aggressiveness to him, a confidence to him. And if he's going to be that type of defender, which I think, De'Aaron mentioned it today, he thinks that part of the reason why his legs haven't been there as a shooter is partially because of the defensive end, but that's just him adjusting and his body adjusting to what's happening. And eventually he'll get there where he'll be able to play on both ends of the court at a high level. But, this is just another step in the progression of what we're going to see from this player. And it's why, like I put the story out on Saturday morning, like they are not trading him. He is not part of any discussion at this point, according to my sources. They're like, he's not in any discussions. So people can call or people can say that that's what they want. He's not part of any discussion. They're not going to trade him. And, that's not to say that like some crazy, like if someone walked up and the Bucks called and said, we'll give you Giannis for Keegan. I'm like, you have to do what's right for the team and the franchise and go ahead and make the move.
Right.
But outside of something that's just so out of the norm of what would possibly happen, like he's not getting traded for Pascal Siakam. He's not getting traded for Lauri Markkanen. He's not getting traded for an OG Anunoby because they believe he'll be better than those players. and that he's younger and that they've got control over his contract status for a while. But again, to get back to the two, like if we're looking at Toronto and we keep bringing up Toronto because they're the team that's out there with these two guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of those guys makes $38 million and the other one makes $19 million. The $19 million guy is probably going to get 25 to 30 a year going forward. The $38 million a year guy is looking for 40 for the next 4 years or whatever. I think if Keegan Murray is this type of player, you can go after a 25 to $30 million player and still fit everybody in long term and don't have to go chase a $40 million player trying to get trying to get better in one piece. So I think it really just like opens up everything for the Kings.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things about that, back on the trade front, is we had a discussion earlier about Pascal Siakam, OG, Zach LaVine reports, and everything like that. And the thing that I would say, and we'll talk about Toronto because that's what everybody's talking about a lot of the times. I don't know if we've ever even asked you this, but do you think the Kings have enough to get one of those two players? Because I'm not sure they do.
I mean, it really just depends on what Toronto's doing, right? So if they're looking to maintain or to get better, then no, the Kings don't have enough. But if they're looking to, like, I don't know, if they're looking for draft picks, the Kings can offer draft picks. If they're looking for draft picks and a solid veteran or two that can help hold down the fort while you're rebuilding, the Kings have enough, I think. Now, again, coming up with $38 million for Pascal Siakam isn't easy. I mean, it's one of like Kevin Huerter or Harrison Barnes. And then on top of that, it's Davion Mitchell, it's Chris Duarte, and it might even be one more piece other than that. That's where it's much easier to chase a guy like Pascal Siakam, where it's just a straight up trade. Like you can trade Kevin Huerter or you could trade Harrison Barnes, and then it comes down to like draft capital. Like what's it going to take to swap players? Now, I don't know if Toronto's ever going to trade him because it seems like, again, they're just like driving off a cliff with these guys. They're not tapping the brakes and saying, hey, maybe someone should get out of the car. They just keep going. And you're like, okay, why would you not trade Fred VanVleet? And then not really be that competitive in trying to re-sign him. And so maybe these guys know something that we don't, but like, I think there's way too much smoke. I read a report today from Sam Amick, said the Kings would be more interested in Siakam than OG Anunoby. And that's not what I've heard. I've heard the opposite.
Conflicting sources.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is this time of year. It's about all kinds of weird, crazy sourcing back and forth. But I've heard especially the Kings would be more interested in OG because he fits the timeline. The defensive prowess, the fact that he can play the 2, 3, 4.
But there's also a contract situation with both of those guys.
Oh yeah, totally. You're not making a deal for either one of those that includes draft picks if you don't have some sort of idea if you can retain them. So, and that's where we got to start pulling on threads, like who plays for who has what agent, like what agent is going to be in play here. And I also I know the reports from our friend Jake Gaden that OG doesn't want to play in Sacramento.
I don't have anything of that sort either.
I'm not hearing any of that. And so I don't know that that's a definite, but I'm also
so I'll say that I'm confident enough to say unless Jake got it from OG, that's not true. I'm confident enough to I'll say what you said about Sam. Our sources are not the same.
Yeah.
Not at all the same.
Yeah.
So
well, go ahead, get to the real question.
I mean,
I know what you want to ask.
I already know where James.
I know what James is going to say.
I already know where James is.
James might leave.
In that report,
James going to walk out.
in that story by Sam Amick, they bring up Zach LaVine, and you talk about who's got who agent and all this other stuff. Well, they brought that into play, talking about clutch. Focus on De'Aaron. LaVine's a clutch guy, and he's open to playing in Sacramento. I'll ask you the question. I won't assume. What's your thoughts on Zach LaVine to the Kings?
Yeah, I just don't see it fitting any way, shape, or form. Like, look, if you're going to go out and get Zach LaVine, who has never played defense a day in his life, like just flat out doesn't play defense. He's like a starting Jamal Crawford. Like, sorry, coach, I don't do that. Like Mike Brown, does Mike Brown need another score? I mean, he had the highest, the best offensive rating in the history of the game last year without Zach LaVine. And so if you're going out and getting Zach LaVine and he's just an offensive weapon, he is a playmaker too, but he's just an offensive weapon. Like that means that like at this point, like Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes, they can't even get up a shot. Like they're averaging like 10 shots or less per game. What do you do when you add Zach LaVine? So it doesn't make any sense.
Well, those two are gone.
Yeah,
so you have
so now you got about 15.
you have some shots out there.
between the two
okay,
of them.
but who's starting at power forward or who's starting at small forward?
Well, we're
Like,
still working through some
you
of
work
this
through
stuff,
that, and
James.
you find
Yeah.
the guy.
no, I get it that like it adds a dynamic scorer, but
You think he's better than Kevin Huerter? Do they get better as a team adding Zach LaVine for the trade? I'll just say the trade I saw was Huerter and Harrison Barnes.
I do not believe they do. I don't. Just because you can score points doesn't mean anything. Like, and especially he's the guy who wants the ball in his hand. He likes to have he likes to direct traffic. I don't buy it. And the other thing I don't buy is you're talking about a guy on a massive contract. Like all of your money is tied up in Sabonis and Fox and in that situation, LaVine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's three $40 million players. Like adding anything else, retaining Malik Monk becomes like very difficult. Like, so for me, I wouldn't, I mean, and we're talking about a guy who blew out his ACL when he was younger. Like, look, he's way closer to
2 All-Star games
to 30. Well, yeah, I mean, I get that, but like, I'm not touching him. Like, I know he's a talented player and I know he can score, but like this team needs more than just points.
So this is where we go back to what we talked about earlier. And I know you're not saying this specifically, but I'm of the belief they don't have enough to get OG or Pascal. Like I don't if they get in a bidding war with, you mentioned Indiana and OKC, they've got more of what Masai would want other than what the Kings got to offer. I don't know why Toronto would want Harrison Barnes for 3 more years if they're getting rid of these guys. Like I and combine that with OKC's coming with 2 first rounders and Lou Dort or something like that. Like why you just got to hope Masai wants to help out the Kings, because if they get in competition with somebody else, I don't think they have enough for either one of them. So you can't get them. You can't get Laurie. I don't think they talking about 5 picks or whatever the case may be. What are we like? What are we talking? Are we talking about Caruso? And because my whole thing is, once you make a deal, you pretty much give up what you have to offer for anything. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
no, I understand
when you make the deal, whatever deal you make, you better make sure it is who you want moving forward, because you don't have a lot of pieces.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to like Harrison, first of all, Harrison is still a reasonably, like, he's a solid veteran player, and his contract is not that bad, and it's only 2 years after this year. So he signed a 3-year deal. So you're picking up 2 more years. But like, look, if you're a team that's resetting and backing up, it doesn't hurt you to go out and trade for a guy like Harrison, because number one, you get him for 2 years. So as opposed to OG, who will walk this summer, you now at least have a player that can play minutes for you for 2 years. He also, his salary isn't so prohibitive that it's going to totally impact your salary cap number. But on top of that, you have to spend at the NBA level. So if your plan is to build around a guy like Scotty Barnes, but Scotty Barnes doesn't make any money, you still have to spend money. Like if you're having Siakam walk off the books for $38 million, if you don't have someone coming in to replace that, you're going to have to go out and sign free agents and overpay guys just to get to the salary floor, which is, again, it's 10%. So the salary cap, I think, is going up to 144 million, which means you got to be $130 million. So having guys that make 12%, 13% of your salary cap, they're not a big deal. The other thing with Harrison is that if you were to trade for Harrison, and let's say you like just strange, like let's just spitball here. If you were to do a straight up swap OG for Harrison, and then you were to throw in, say, 2 first-round picks, but that comes with the understanding that OG is going to stick around. The Raptors could then turn around and try to get another first-round pick out of Harrison in trade, because there are teams around the league that value Harrison, that know that he still has plenty of game, that knows he's still a starting level player, and he's under contract for 2 years. And so then they could go get other assets in addition to what they already got from you originally. So I don't think that like trading Harrison Barnes is not a big deal. I mean, Joe Johnson's like ridiculously stupid contract got traded. I mean, he had like 90 million left or something. You can trade Harrison Barnes.
But that's if my point is also if Toronto's like nobody else in the league wants these guys, we can only deal with Sacramento. Do you have enough to outbid OKC, Indiana, and Team X?
Okay, I would say possibly, but I'd also, the players are going to have some say in this. So if OG doesn't want to come to Sacramento, he's like, hey, I just tell them I won't sign there. He'll tell his agent, tell them I won't sign there. So if they're trading for me, they're renting me, right? And if that's not the case, that player can do the same thing to another team. They can say, hey, I don't want to go to Indiana. Like, trade me to Sacramento. Trade me to Team X, but I don't want to go to Indiana. Tell Indiana I'm not going to sign an extension.
That's what I'd say.
So a player has plenty of pull within this. But, again, I think OG has always made a ton of sense. He fits the player arc, like the timeline. He's like 26 years old. He can shoot the 3, and he can play the 2 or the 3. You can start him at either position. Him and Keegan Murray as switchable forwards would be elite. So, and the 3 of them together with Sabonis on the front line, that would be absolutely spectacular. I mean, you would really, really be like cooking with something there.
That move, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
That move to you makes them contenders?
Yeah, I think it does. Well, if Keegan's the guy that can go out and do this, then yes. Yeah, I mean, you might have to wait a year for them to truly be contenders, like for this thing to like grow. But yeah, I don't see why not. And then the other thing is like, what if it's not like Harrison Barnes? What if they would prefer Kevin Huerter, who's from upstate New York? Wouldn't, like, I'm sure Kevin, while he loves Sacramento, would go, oh, okay, I'm right by my family, not that far away, back on the East Coast. But if you were to make a move like that, and you slide OG Anunoby alongside De'Aaron Fox as your starting 2, okay. I mean, that's tough.
By the way, poor
Kevin. Yeah.
Well, poor Kevin's had a rough season. And
DeVito got beat up a little bit.
DeVito and that damn pizzeria appearances.
DeVito got hit so hard on one play, and then they
man.
made him come off the court because when he got hit, he kind of played dead a little bit. And then they're like, bro, you can't play dead and then just like pop up.
No, I'm a Draymond Green fan.
Yeah.
I was watching the Kings Warriors.
Yeah. Anyway, like all of this is speculation. All of it's crazy. The Kings are going to be aggressive. I know that. They're fully, like, they're under the same understanding that we are, that they aren't quite there, but they are very close. But you also have to look, like, there's a good chance they go 7 games over 500 tonight. And I mean, that's huge.
Well, you got a chance to go 7 games over 500 for sure, but you have a really difficult stretch of basketball coming up with Boston, Phoenix, and Minnesota. And obviously they're capable of beating all of those teams. They've already beaten 2 of them this year. But the Boston one I find really intriguing because last year's top 3 in the East were Boston, Milwaukee, Phoenix. They were 0-6 against those 3 teams.
Oh, Boston, Milwaukee, Philly.
What'd I say? Yeah,
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Phoenix was too. It was a different time. Different time when they were a top team in the league makeup used to be weird. Yeah, Philly, sorry. The 76ers. They didn't beat those teams at all last year. And I think we because I was on the floor, played Philly without Joe, right?
Yeah. There was a couple guys out.
Man, if you
Harden
looked at
Was
his
Harden on that team too?
I think
Yeah.
he was out.
I'm
too.
losing track of so I'm losing my Harden tracker's a little bit off. I can't remember where he was, but
have you looked at Embiid's numbers?
yeah.
Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Man, it's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, it took something. It was the NBC stat the other night
Mm.
that I think Joel has like the most first quarter points and the most third quarter points maybe, and it was doing to highlight what Fox is doing in the fourth. That made me pull up Joe's numbers. I was like, man, we keep talking about Jokic as an MVP. Yo, Joe is having a better season than he did last year when he
Yeah.
actually
yeah.
won the damn award.
I mean, the
Team is
dude's at
cooking too.
34.2 points, 11.7 rebounds,
That's
and
insane.
six assists, and he's got 1.9 blocks and 1.1 steals.
Damn.
Yeah. And he's doing that in less than 34 minutes. Like it's crazy how good he is and what he's doing right now. But yeah, and weren't we all talking about whether he was going to ask to get out of there? Back to your point.
Joel Embiid is averaging that, like shooting like a 3 or 2 a game.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, that was crazy about
Get on
Keegan.
the block, big fella.
Keegan scored 47 and went to the free throw line for 4 free throws.
Mm.
Like he scored 47 on 23 shots.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would never.
Yeah.
He's scoring 47. He getting 20 at the line.
23 at the
Yeah,
line.
yeah.
Yeah, at least,
But to his credit, he'll be like 23 of 23.
Yeah, he ain't gonna miss.
No, that's true.
He ain't gonna
That's true.
miss.
Yeah, but to your point, yeah, the Kings need to prove they can beat the teams in the East. This is a test, but I like their chances this year with Keegan Murray like stepping up defensively against a guy like Jason Tatum
Mhm.
versus what they were last year, where I just don't think they had any answer at all. And all of a sudden you're starting to have some answers, and they also don't have Marcus Smart anymore. Like they do have Drew, but like somebody's gonna have to try to slow down Fox, although Drew does a good job against Fox. So but that should be a really good battle for the Kings. And then look, you gotta beat Phoenix, or you gotta beat Minnesota. You got the back-to-back on Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday. Just one of the strangest scheduling, and like this week is just
And that's
ridiculously bad.
that's the tough thing. You got a Phoenix team that you did beat a shorthanded Phoenix team.
Yeah.
You're being fair, but still you did what you were supposed to do. You got Minnesota. You were able to beat them at home. Still, I think their only loss at home, the Sacramento Kings gave them on the season.
Yeah.
And you also have the weird dynamic of the back-to-back thing wrapped up in all of this.
Oh yeah.
You got that Friday, Kings fans are going to be on super high alert on that game Friday. And then Saturday, it's almost like everyone's going to be sitting around crossing their fingers, wondering if they lose by 30.
No, I
It's
totally,
weird. And that's going to be the case until it's not.
No.
That's as dumb as it is what it is. That's going to be the
Well, it
case
is what
until
it
it's
is.
not.
It's not dumb. It just is what it is.
It's dumb. Well, if it is what it is dumb then.
can we rename the Phoenix Suns the shorthanded Phoenix Suns?
Well,
Because every game.
Well,
I mean, they're 14 and
yeah.
12 on the season,
Mm.
and they're like
If
They're
only
7
someone
and 8
or
at
some
home.
people could have predicted this.
well,
Yeah.
It was that you couldn't predict it.
Yeah,
know, it's-
totally
There's nothing
unpredictable.
you could see.
Yep, those two bums in Sacramento didn't say that repeatedly. Love Bradley Beal. I'm sorry that he's hurt, but this is what we talked about. This team. I mean, I'm happy KD has played as many games as he had, but this is what we talked about with this team. Like there was no chance you were going to be able to see what this team looks like. And now, if I don't know if you're a Kevin Durant, hell, if you're just a basketball fan, you got to at least have the Brooklyn Nets thing in the back of your head where is this team actually going to play games before the playoffs get here? And then when they get here, how much are they going to have to figure out in a series against a Minnesota team that appears to be tough, or a Sacramento Kings team, or whoever's left standing there at that point?
I'd say like Minnesota right now, they're rolling 19-5, right? They're 11-1 at home. So you're right. The only loss is to the Kings. They're going to go through like a stretch because this is the first time they've been in this type of situation. They're going to go through a stretch where they lose 6 of 8. They'll let everybody right back
Ant-Man's
into it.
going through a stretch right
I'm about
now.
to say, it
so
might happen now.
might
He's a little distracted.
the stretch may be beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And did
Are you not caught up on the Anthony Edwards story?
No.
Okay, we'll fill you in during the commercial break.
Did you see that Canada denied access to Miles Bridges? They said, nope, you're not allowed in the country. So he will not be playing tonight against the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, wow, I didn't.
They don't allow felons or whatever he
Oh.
is.
Well, I think
like
his case is pending. I think that has something to do with it, right?
I don't think it's pending
he's got.
anymore.
Well, no, he got another one, didn't he? Or
Well, he had was it a car? He something happened when he picked
cue
up
balls he threw
that's
billiard
that was
balls.
the second one. Yeah,
but I
that
don't
was
think
the second one.
that's I don't know what's
Well, it's
going on
not
with the
legal,
case.
so
No.
it's definitely
Oh
something.
no, child endangerment. The kids
Yeah,
were in the
yeah,
car.
that was a part
Yeah.
of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's an open case, I guess, or open situation.
Did anyone try to get him mental health, or did no? That wasn't convenient for that argument.
That's a
Okay,
good question.
no, I'm just trying to view the parameters of when we start evaluating a player's psyche.
Yeah.
Who's been in the league 12.
Charlotte's Hornets restricted free agent Miles Bridges pled no contest to felony domestic violence charges. You cannot go to Canada with a felony charge.
Man, Canada got it right.
Yeah.
Just y'all can't come. Oh, you can say whatever you want to us about it. You can't come over here and not even play basketball.
Yeah.
We'll come back. We will talk much more Kings. James, including this tough matchup that the Sacramento Kings got tonight.
13.5-point favorite.
A spirited Washington Wizards team that I believe did they play yesterday?
Yeah,
Are they on
Phoenix? Yeah.
Oh, they did.
They're on a back-to-back. Boston will be on a back-to-back. And then the Kings have a back-to-back of their own.
Well, the Wizards are on a run right now, having won one of their last two. They're starting to find their form a little bit. So we'll talk about this matchup between the Sacramento Kings and the Washington Wizards with our Kings insider James Ham here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. That's the thing, David Jackson. Is Brett Favre even a felon yet? I don't know that he is. I don't know that they've constituted him a felon.
Nope.
I don't even know that they've charged him with anything.
It's funny. Where did that go? This one said. Somebody said something in here about get Torrey Craig. In all honesty, I'd rather do a budget trade for Torrey Craig and Alex Caruso than to trade for Zach LaVine. Like, look,
what if Chicago does Torrey Craig with LaVine, and you're doing Herter, Barnes, and Davion?
Maybe, but I mean that's tough. That's tough because I feel like in that situation, like Torrey Craig is the only way that Zach LaVine is palatable at all. You know what I mean? Like he is so bad defensively. Like and then when they run him out there with Kobe White, like what are you doing? Kobe White. There we go.
Kobe White's been cooking lately.
Well, he cooks, but those two, like, they don't play any defense at all. So it's tough. Like, that's why you have to, you need to separate them. I also, like, I don't know, Will Hardy's got kind of the same problem. He's got a whole bunch of players that are just like each other. He's got, like, 3 different versions of Jordan Clarkson. Colin Sexton.
I would say this, though. It was pretty... Nobody was looking at Kevin Herter as a defensive stalwart until he got here in Sacramento. Not that they're looking at him like that now, but he got in a situation with the coach, with a group of guys, and he decided to commit somewhat to the defensive end. That could happen to a Zach LaVine or anybody else that comes here. Could happen.
Zach LaVine's not getting better on defense.
No, but he could commit. I mean, Sasha doesn't seem like Sabonis isn't getting better on defense, but he understands how to play within a team structure, and with the team defense aspect, is better. Sabonis by himself isn't this great defender. I wouldn't even classify. He's not a rim protector, nothing like that. but he understands the confines of team defense, and he's bought into what's going on here, and it works.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I just like Zach LaVine has played in one playoff series. You know, it's things like that that matter. Like he's played in one playoff series, and I'm not saying he lacks playoff experience. I mean, he lacks the ability to get a team to the playoffs. This Bulls team, they have no reason to be bad.
Yeah, so if you traded him for Fox, that would be ridiculous. But we're not asking him to get the Kings to the playoffs. We're asking him to be a good ball player and
Yeah.
fit in with what's going on.
But there's nothing that says that trading for him wouldn't cause you to miss the playoffs.
I don't think you missed the playoffs if you traded for Zach LaVine.
I think something went really wrong if that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but does he impact your ceiling as a team? I don't think so. And if it is, I think it's negatively. Like I'd rather have 2 role players that know their job and can space the floor than one guy who only plays one side of the court and doesn't and wants the ball in his hands. I didn't even look at what his usage is, but I'm going to guess it's reasonably high, although his minutes per game are down a bit this year.
Which
But,
two? Which role players, James, do you think that could help the Kings? I guess it's all getting them to contender status or whatever. Like if they added a couple role players, like do you think any guys could like help them get to that?
I don't know. It'd have to be a really, really high level role player. Like before I watched Kelly Olynyk play in the game last night, the game on Saturday, I would have said, hey, Kelly Olynyk is a guy that I would consider trading for. Now, he did have 13 assists or something crazy, but him on the defensive end, like that was like the gate was like he left the gate wide open. Like, what exactly is happening here? He wasn't playing defense at all. So, but he's a guy that, like, if you're going to improve a role position, I like him. I like Caruso, like guys that have proven in the past that they understand their role and can thrive in a specific role. But I don't know. Like,
I can sum up that entire commercial break for the radio audience. James really does not like Zach LaVine, like at all. Like if it's not coming across enough on the radio, like James is not a fan of anything involving Zach LaVine. I don't know this for sure. James might hate everyone named Zach at this point.
They don't hate Zach Morris. Don't do it.
I love Zach Morris.
Okay,
Come
all
on.
right. So we know Zach Morris is number 1 on the power.
That's
rankings.
right. Say by the bell, baby.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, like the advanced statistics aren't kind to Zach LaVine. So, I mean, he's a 15.7 PER guy, which is like slightly above league average player. But he makes $40 million a year, and it goes up from there. Like you're talking about an investment in a player who plays one side of the court, and you're a team who doesn't need offense. If you're a team like the Orlando Magic last year that can't score at all, then yeah, Zach LaVine makes a lot of sense. Or if you're a team, let's say like Cleveland, that has all of these defensive bigs, and you know, even like Isaac Okoro at the wing, then maybe he makes sense if you can defend and protect. Even I would say a team like Minnesota that does have rim protection and like defensive capabilities. Sure, if you can hide it, but what you don't do is hide a guy on a team that doesn't naturally play defense. And look, the Kings are up to like 15th in the league in defensive rating. They're doing a good job. They're trying to improve. They are getting better. There are moments where they're really good. It's those games where they just get, you know, stomped, where you're like, oh man, the defense is bad. The other games, all like I think they're highly competitive.
My thing, I'm not even sure that I would trade for Zach LaVine just because, you know, I'm not even sure I'm ready to make a move just in general. You know what I mean? So I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I would say, I mean, all his numbers are in that particular situation. And that's assuming that Zach LaVine would look at this situation coming to Sacramento and be like, I'm going to just be the same Zach LaVine I was in Chicago. Not a guy that looks at it like, man, I got an opportunity to win. You're right. He hasn't been on a lot of winning teams. He may be a guy that's like, I've gotten stats. I've made all-star teams. I want to be part of something special. And we go to Sacramento, get in where I fit in, and buy into what they have going on. Like that, but everything when people say that stuff, that's assuming that Zach would never do that. And that's a little unfair too.
No, I get that, but like I don't know a lot of 29-year-old NBA players that completely change who they are on purpose. Like at this deep into their career.
Well, Carmelo did it.
Carmelo did
Russ
it.
is doing it
LaVine,
right now.
and Zach
Okay.
LaVine, 2 years, he's a two-time All-Star. He's a
I-
two-time All-Star. This
I
year,
get that.
Zach LaVine could be the greatest teammate in the world this year. The Bulls stink. They're not good enough. That's not Zach LaVine's fault.
Yeah, but I find it weird
Is
that
it DeMar DeRozan's fault?
well, no, but I find it weird that every time we look at the Bulls, we think of all the players on their team you'd like to have. Like I don't think DeMar DeRozan fits with Sacramento because he's just like straight up loves a mid range and would shrink the defense, right? So that's one guy. But Vucevic, you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind having him. Patrick Williams, oh, I wouldn't mind having him. Torrey Craig, or Alex Caruso, you're like, oh yeah, I would consider that. You know, if you were to lose,
Are you blaming this all on Zach LaVine?
no. What I'm saying is it like they have all of these pieces, but none of them work together for some reason. And at some point,
Maybe
like
they don't have as good of a coach.
I guess
That's
And I
part
like
of it.
Billy
they don't
Donovan.
have
Nah,
Mike Brown,
he-
that's for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to be without Billy Donovan, I'm sure, at the end of this year.
Poor Billy was
Yeah,
upset
so-
they were doing hacker drum.
Really,
Oh.
my biggest
See,
concern.
well, that's the thing. Billy's worried about the wrong things.
Yeah.
Sorry, James.
My biggest concern with Zach is number one, the defensive side of the ball is well documented. Number two, offensively, I don't think he's a great fit. Just because he can score, like I don't think that's great. But the biggest issue, 40 million, 43 million, 46 million, 49 million,
Yeah.
49 million when he's
And we got to do the bookmark Keegan Murray's contract
Yeah,
thing here.
man.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
got to make sure Keegan
Yeah.
gets paid.
Well, that and
That's for
I mean,
sure.
you're saying goodbye to someone like Malik Monk if that's the case. Like you guys look like that's what that's saying. Like you can't afford to have all of those guys, and we're gonna give Malik Monk a 4-year deal worth 20 million. So if you got 20, 40, 40,
But
and,
isn't
and a
that
guy going up to 50, and
is-
then De'Aaron's gonna get 50 eventually.
isn't that also the case? Yeah, De'Aaron about to be at 80. isn't that also the case for just this is all hypothetical stuff, the Siakam and OG stuff?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the case with Siakam.
Mhm.
But I mean, is Siakam? I don't know that Siakam, like almost 30, is going to expect to get like he might hover at 40. I don't think he's going to go 40, 45, 50 plus, right?
Mhm.
As he's hitting like 30, 31, 32, 33. Maybe I'm
Mhm.
wrong. With OG, I mean, he has a player option next year at like 19.9 million, which he's opting out of, no question. But I don't think he's a $40 million player on the open market. I don't think he's getting that. Like there's only so many teams with cap space every year, and it's usually like 3 or 4 teams. So either he goes back to Toronto and gets paid, or he goes like somewhere else and has to deal with the whole free agency stuff and who has money.
It sounds like the Toronto thing is at least a possibility for OG.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that I would put more at like the 27 to $32 million range for a 4-year deal.
Mhm.
Like, so he's going to be a lot of money, but he's not going to be a lot of money, which again, he's not going to hit 49 million as a 33-year-old like Zach LaVine. That's just like, there's no way, in my opinion, there's no way he lives up to that contract.
The biggest thing for me with all of this is I don't think I necessarily make a move if I'm Monty McNair because the team, to me, hasn't shown signs of needing a move to be made. If that makes any sense, like
I
yeah,
thought
we do.
they did though. I mean, I thought they showed signs of it when they played New Orleans. I thought they showed signs of it when they played the Clippers. I thought they showed signs of it when they played the Warriors a couple of times early in the season, where you just kept thinking they don't have a guy to defend. Like they've got one of them in Keegan. They don't have another that can defend these big teams.
Yeah, but they can beat OKC then. Like I think we're overreaction. The overreactions we have to one game this year. Because I'm going on for my criteria, right? Like I asked them, I was like, let me know you're real. Win 8 out of 11. I think they've won like 7 out of 10.
Yeah, no, they're
Like
right there.
they're there's going to be games where the matchup is bad, or they don't play a good game, or they don't hit their threes. That's just the nature of who they are. But they're I don't think you need to make a move with these guys right now.
Well, I'm looking at if you're the 2, 3, 4 seed. Let's say they do great here from here on out, and they're either the 2, the 3, or the 4 seed.
Mhm.
I don't like their matchup against the 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's where you got to look and be like, okay, like if you're gonna have to face the Clippers or you're gonna have to face New Orleans in the first round.
The Clippers can go to the NBA Finals, though. Like New Orleans, I still think they'd beat New Orleans.
I don't know.
But the Clippers can go to the NBA Finals. Like nobody would be like, yeah, I want the Clippers. I don't think.
No, I don't think anyone would, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking for answers to try to stop them. Like whatever that is. Like I don't know what that is, but there's all kinds of answers out there. I mean, even they've got PJ Tucker on their team. I'd feel more comfortable going into a playoff series with PJ Tucker trying to defend a Kawhi Leonard or a Paul George or one of those guys in a big game and giving the physicality and stuff than where you are right now. And so that's I'm not saying like this team needs a revamp. I'm saying that you can see that there's a hole, and it's not just long athletic players. It's long athletic physical players that they can't deal with because they have no problem. Like we saw them play Minnesota before. They beat up on Minnesota in certain points of the game. If they were missing Jaden McDaniels, but the Kings were down a couple players. If Fox wasn't there, they were down somebody in the first time they met. But they don't have a problem with that. They don't. Same thing if you look at Utah. Like Utah has length, but a bunch of Stream Bean guys. And you talked about OKC. Like just push Chet Holmgren around. That's why it's the team that has the 6'8" guy who really bullies his way around that the Kings have a whole bunch of trouble with.
Find all of this weird. Kings are 15-9. There's a scenario. It's not a likely one. There's a scenario there in the 3 spot tonight. By the end of the night, they get a win. Memphis will need to gut one out against Oklahoma City, and Dallas plays Denver. If Dallas wins, they'll jump Denver. If Denver wins, they'll jump Dallas. They could be in the 3 seed by the end of the night, and we had a second-year player score 47, and we're trying to acquire Zach LaVine or OG Anunoby or
I'm with you.
The same names that we have for the last 6 months.
I'm with you, but I'll ask both of you guys this, not in the same vein, but is this akin to when you talk about that, when you're like, if they win tonight, beat a bad Washington team, they could be the 3rd seed. Like, what are we talking about? Is that akin to what people would say about the Philadelphia Eagles all year? Like they're winning, but it ain't right. I don't think so. I'm just asking a question.
I don't think it's the Eagles. You're gonna hate when I say this. It's the Cowboys.
Oh,
that's where I'm at. Where you get to a certain, and you're like,
well, James hates the Kings.
no.
Jesus.
I think they can be a 3 seed, but like, look, if you're gonna keep talking contender.
Sean, Brendan, and James hosting the Kings hater.
Yeah. Look, as of right now, Minnesota in my book is not a contender. OKC is not a contender. Dallas is not a contender.
Minnesota,
New Orleans not a contender.
I don't like the Timberwolves, but man, I feel like they've proved me wrong.
Well, it's possible,
that's
but
a
like
team
they
that
can win the
looks like it's
West,
together.
but I don't think they can win. I don't think, as of right now, I don't think they can win a title. Like maybe they figure it out and they're this team all year long, and they show that that's who they are. But I'm still like, I'm not 100% sold. I would still take Boston. I'd take Milwaukee. I'd take Philly over them without any question. And then you get to like the other teams in the East that somehow pop up and are great, and like the Heat, who somehow get to the finals. We keep saying, man, but there they are. But then in the West, it's Denver.
They beat them.
You might be right about the Clippers. Like you might be,
beat them.
yeah, you might be right about the Clippers being one of those teams. You hate to say it, but it's possible the Lakers
beat them twice.
I don't know, but I'm not sure.
Lakers got a lot
I'm
to
not
show
sure.
me.
Beat them twice. Beat Phoenix.
But look, if that's the Kings' objective
Right now, if they play Houston in a playoff series, we got a problem. That's about
Houston. We've got a problem.
Thank you.
The Kings play Houston.
Yeah.
If they play New Orleans in a playoff series, they're in trouble. You got to find
I
it.
was
You
being
got to figure it out.
sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, we used to have the.
We'll just send Keegan out there to score 47, and everything will be fine.
Yeah,
That's how it works, right? We could
I
just do it
guess.
that way.
We used to have the designated Kobe
Who do you hate
stoppers.
more, Zach LaVine or the Kings?
That's funny. Yeah.
Wow, a Cowboys comp. I think the worst part was it cut me because I was like, oh, I think I know what he means.
Kings are definitely not the Cowboys.
No, I don't think so either.
Definitely.
I understood your Eagles comp. I understand both the comps. I think the only way you
Kings
can
might
make
be
the
the Lions.
Eagles comp if you don't like what you've seen from Sacramento is your expectations were just a little bit different following last year. And I think the multiple losses to the same teams is a little confusing. You have the multiple losses to the Warriors. You have 3 losses to the Pelicans. The 2 to Houston. Like that's like the hell is this?
They just keep showing you
Those teams are fine. They're not Boston. They're not Philadelphia. They're like these teams are fine. Like how are we getting our ass kicked by them?
But like I said, and maybe it's just purely we all break it down to matchups, maybe because then they turn around, they handle the Nuggets. They've handled the Lakers twice.
Well, we tried. It was a shorthanded Nuggets,
but we don't
team.
do that with the Kings because we talk about Houston. We don't talk about De'Aaron not being there. We just say it's a bad matchup and they can't play.
Oh yeah, but like Houston, I'm just writing off as 2 really bad games. I am. I'm not writing off Houston as like a bad matchup for the Kings. I just think it was a weird stretch in the season where you had 2 bad games.
Kings can't get past Dylan Brooks.
Yeah,
Shout out
and like,
Dylan
look,
Brooks.
I would
Can't
like
get
to
past Shaq, Kobe, Steph Curry, and Dylan Brooks.
There it is. I would like to see the Kings play against the Clippers when they're not on the second night of a back-to-back. I know the Clippers were on the second night of a back-to-back too, but just have a game that's straight up where no one is on the second night of a back-to-back and like see how they fare. But I still feel like we've seen too many times you can just circle the guys, whether it's Zion, whether it's Kawhi Leonard, whether it's like Brandon Ingram. Like there are these players that the Kings cannot get around, and they have to figure out how to do that. But they also just might not have the bodies to do it. And that's okay. That's what team building is about. Sometimes you get to a point where, you have a team and you can see, like we can see that there might not be a ceiling on Keegan Murray, but that doesn't mean that you can't see that there might be a ceiling on the Kings if they don't address, XYZ.
What is this current group good enough to do?
I think they're good enough to be a 1, 2, 3 seed.
Can they win? Can this
West?
Sacramento Kings team win the West?
They can win the regular season West.
That's not. No. That's not what I'm asking. Can they represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals?
I have a tough time seeing that. I definitely think that they can make it to the second round, and I even think that I think this last year, if they somehow if the 3-pointer in Game 4 goes in, and then they would have beat the Warriors. If De'Aaron Fox doesn't get hurt, they would have beat the Warriors. I think they would have won again in the second round, and they could have been in the Western Conference Finals this last year.
Okay.
I mean, it was
none of that happened.
And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I don't think they're far off of that. I think the same thing could happen this year. Same scenario you just laid out could happen this year. They get to the Western Conference Finals. Same scenario.
So, okay, great. The question was, can this team represent the Western
Yes.
Conference?
Yes. Yes.
No,
because they can't beat New Orleans.
I think they're close. I think they're close.
Well, Denver's pretty good. I mean, so
the Clippers are pretty good.
But they've beaten Denver. That's what we basing this
playoff
stuff
series.
off of. They beat them.
I know. I hate to be
because right now today, I think they would beat the Pelicans in the series.
I understand,
but because they lost, people are like they can't beat New Orleans.
No. I said Denver, and I think a Denver playoff series is different than beating them in the regular season. I'm not saying they can or they can't. I'm just saying I shook my head because I don't want to be the guy to say the playoffs are different, but I do think that dynamic is extremely different.
Those are two different questions, though. Would I
So-
bet on them to beat Denver? No.
No.
Can they? I think they can.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking you to bet
I
on
think they
anyone.
can.
I'm asking you, is this team as constructed good enough to represent the West?
I think they can because they
So
can. They literally. It's not even like.
So
a
does
fluke.
LaVine so the point in that question was, does LaVine increase those chances? Does OG increase those chances?
Mhm.
Does Siakam increase those chances?
I think all three of them do.
All three of them.
Yeah.
I think 2 of the 3 do.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that.
No, I
I
mean,
know you'd say
because
that.
again, you're going to spend 40
Does
million bucks.
LaVine decrease their chance?
Yes. You got to be able to get stops at some point. You've got to be able to. You have got to find a way to match up against the players that we keep.
So you
talking
rely
about.
on Kevin Huerter to get stops for you?
More than I would Zach LaVine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't do that to Kevin Huerter.
I
Don't do that to Kevin
mean,
Huerter.
I'm just. I don't think it's that much different. Like I don't think it's that much different. But we kind of talking like Kevin Huerter is.
But
like,
remember, Zach LaVine,
Bruce Brown.
the addition of Zach LaVine also costs you probably
Mhm.
Harrison. So it creates another. You're losing something somewhere in that regard. Even
Absolutely.
if you think two scenarios, if you think Zach and Kevin are a wash, you have a deficiency at the Harrison position because he's
Mhm.
probably involved in this somehow.
Mhm.
If you think Zach is a plus over Herter, it's probably not enough of a plus to lose Harrison and then pull a different rotational piece out, which is why we came up with the idea of, because we came up with it because we're geniuses, obviously. We should be running a basketball team. You probably have to get a 3 or a 4 or a 3 and some sort of combo forward or one of the positions
Mhm.
back. So either to fill Trey Lyle's spot because he's in the starting lineup,
Mhm.
or if you want to keep Trey on that second unit, have a guy who can work with Domas,
Yeah.
or maybe more specifically work with Keegan.
And it could be as simple as what you're talking about. Trey moving the starting lineup, Sasha backing him up.
Mm-hmm.
That could be part of the rotation
Mhm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but to your
Can't
original
wait till
point,
Sasha
though,
scores 47.
to your original question, though, I don't think I'm not at the point where I feel like they need to make a move right now because I don't see the assets that the Kings have and a move that they can make that would justify being locked into this team for the next 3 years. Like, as much as I like Zach LaVine more than James, I don't know if I want to be locked into him for 3 or 4 years.
Jesse,
What's the goal this year for the Kings? What's the goal?
Make the playoffs.
Is that it?
Mine hasn't changed.
Like, what are they trying to reach this year?
I think
Well-
your goal and their goal are different.
yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
what everyone in this room would be comfortable and in that room would be comfortable with is them not just making the playoffs, but making it to the second round, solidifying themselves as a team that's on the rise. Right? That would be like, okay, perfect. But that's not what their goal is. They
Mhm.
keep saying championship. They keep saying
Mhm.
these things. And like I
Yes,
get
they
it.
should.
Mhm.
They should. But at the same time, in order to get there, like I just don't know that you're there, that you have the team to do it yet.
So if you don't have enough, it goes. How are you going? I don't know. I don't see how you trade for somebody that's going to get you there.
So
with,
then-
with what you have not being enough, why would that be enough for somebody else and what they're trying to do, whether it's rebuild or contend, but it's not enough for you?
So then my question now is, are we a year too early with the contender talk? Like maybe this is another development, see what Keegan is in year 2. Like, are we too early as far as
No.
like getting them to championship contenders, as far as like making a move this year with their assets, what they have right now?
No, because this is how I feel you should talk when you have 2 All-NBA players on your team.
And I think you're
Talk about winning a championship.
I think you're right. I don't think it's too early, but you have to be realistic about what you're missing.
Sure.
Like this team
Sure.
with a tweak, a substantial, strong tweak, the right one, sure. Why
The-
not?
Real quick, the other thing about being a contender is also the fact that the West is not dominant the way people make it out to
That's
be.
it. Right.
So if you were
right.
in
Yep.
in 18 when it was the Warriors and the
Yep.
Rockets at the
Yep.
top, you can't contend with them with this team.
Yep.
This group in this West, I think they can come out of the West.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you in that regard. I give my respect to the Denver Nuggets. We like talking about matchups. I think the Kings are a great matchup for Denver, whether with Jamal Murray in the lineup or out. Like, I think they're a great matchup.
But you'd feel a whole lot better about this Kings team if they had Aaron Gordon.
Yeah,
That's that type of piece that this team is missing. Like, find me that piece.
I just want them to get through the difficult matchup tonight against the Washington Wizards. Washington Wizards, as Kenny said, they're hot. They've won one of their last two.
Just trying to get
Knowing how well they play, even despite that, we get a Shackton highlight tonight from Jordan Poole or the Wizards.
the poor guy slipped on a wet spot last night. Come on, man.
Well, that video that they made about him was just way out of the line.
Ooh.
The Jordan Poole one.
The ghost of Draymond Green punching
You
him. You
didn't
didn't
see
see that?
Who made that?
I don't know, but Drew Down sent it to
Oh,
us.
come on,
The ghost of Draymond Green.
It was like a
punching
hologram
him.
that took him
was-
down.
That's terrible. I laughed,
Come on, man.
but it was terrible.
Don't do that to my man Jordan Poole, man. Dang, I like Jordan
Again,
Poole
just
still.
because it was funny doesn't mean it was okay.